What's going on out there, guys? Want to welcome everyone to the very first episode of Unscripted. My name is Wayne. I will be your host on this little brand new adventure we've got going, and I will be joined tonight and always by my co-host and good buddy, Mr. Duffy. How are you doing tonight, Mr. Duffy?
Oh, it couldn't be better. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for the show.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Yeah, just to talk a little bit about what to expect from this show. Um, yeah, again, like I said, my name is Wayne. I am the founder and the president of Manimal Research. I founded a small research organization in the southeast. I'm actually located in southeast Tennessee, and yeah, I wanted to get my own little organization going, and I started that a couple of years ago. And I also do a weekly live broadcast on YouTube. My channel over there is Manimal Research, and you can find me there. That's actually where I met Mr. Duffy there. Duffy, tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
Well, yeah, that's right. I found your channel on YouTube, and I love the live chat and going on there and interacting with people. I've been doing research about the Bigfoot, ever since about 2008 when I got the internet. I remember that was the first term I typed into a YouTube search engine. Once I got a laptop, I said, "Well, I got the internet here, and I got the whole world at my fingertips. What should I type in?" And the first thing I did was type in Bigfoot. I do believe it was one of the first playlists I made on YouTube. But since then, I really realized the reality, pardon the redundancy of that. I realized the reality of these creatures around 2017 after watching Utah Sasquatch. And this guy who was kind of directing people to go out and do this project, Go and See. And I said, okay, I'm going to go out and see if I can really find this evidence that they're saying is out there. And I started posting stuff onto YouTube, and I got a lot of recognition right off the beginning. I actually had some of my research printed in one of Chris Noel's books, and this was concerning the nearness of Sasquatch. And since then, I love photography. I've got a whole compilation of structures, and there's a whole issue whether people think that, some people say Bigfoot's making these structures, some people say they're not. But I have a lot of pictures of these things that I find in conjunction with footprints and other potential evidence that they could be doing. And I live in Denver, Colorado now, so I've been doing my research all around the Denver metro. But yeah, I'm just kind of found your show, did an interview on there, and you and I became friends. And I really appreciate you inviting me along for this ride, Wayne.
Yeah, man. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. I've been doing the live show on YouTube, Manimal Research, for it's been a couple of years now, and you've been on there a couple of times, and man, I've learned so much by doing this, so much more. I have so much more knowledge now than I did starting it, a couple of years ago, and the main thing, what I've learned is I've got a long way to go. That I don't know as much as I thought I did going into it, and but one thing good that has come from it is all the awesome people that I've gotten a chance to meet, and those of you that have seen my show on YouTube know that I've kind of got this kind of laid back reputation. I'm not really. I don't really get in there and mix it up with anybody. I have an open mind, and I just let people, tell their story and do their thing. And I'm definitely going to be doing that on this show. But I thought that it would be really, really cool when I was trying to figure out who to bring on to help me get this thing going and to take this show to a completely different level than what I was used to with Manimal. And I just kept coming back to your name, Mr. Duffy or Duffy. I really did. I mean, you and I, we become really good friends, and I think that's because opposites attract. You
Now,
know,
you say that, but you know what? I think you got a really good heart and you have really good discernment, Wayne. And I can see in your eyes on the live stream when someone's telling you a story, you don't just believe it, but you're not disbelieving it. You're internalizing it and you're taking it all into consideration and giving it a fair judgment. And I think that's why we're going to get along and the show is going to be such a success.
awesome. Yeah, man. I appreciate you saying that, but you kind of get in there, and you are not afraid if, and this is one thing that I've respected about you, and others don't really seem to like it that much. I've learned that you're not afraid to get in there and question things and to ask people the difficult questions and things like that. And that's something that I haven't really been doing a whole lot of on my show. And that's why I think the two of us together on this thing, we can be successful and do it a little bit different than what most people are seeing. I think it's going to be a good relationship. I really do.
Oh, well, thank you. And thanks for saying that. Yeah, sometimes, you got to get in there and step on some toes, but it's not to insult anybody so much as to really get people to be honest. And that's what this is all about, is the truth. And we're searching for the truth. And yeah, there's just a lot of claims made out there. And what happens, I've talked with a few friends of mine, and you get this, I realize you have this carnival atmosphere around the conferences and making money off of Bigfoot. And you can have a following and start taking advantage of them, and you don't want to do that with people. So sometimes I got to question people just to keep them honest is all, because I'm just out there for the truth like everybody else. But it's
Yeah,
we're all looking for that. So
absolutely, man. Well, yeah, as I said at the beginning, the name of this show is Unscripted. We're
mhm.
going to be the Unscripted podcast. So that's what we're doing on this very first episode. We, you and I talked, about the best strategy to get this thing rolling, and we're just going to stick to the name. We didn't write anything out. We do plan on having some guests. We got some really interesting guests lined up that we're going to be talking to very shortly and bringing those along. So obviously, we're going to go into those with a little bit of a game plan. But yeah, it's this is going to be unscripted, so that's what we're doing tonight. And we're not just this is not just going to be a Bigfoot show, guys. I know that there are going to be some people out there that are a little upset about that. I do get comments all the time when on my show, when on Manimal, when I have different genres come on. Some people aren't happy about that. They just want to hear the Bigfoot stuff, but then you've got those people out there that are interested in a lot more. And to be honest, the reason I wanted to do that was when I came into this a couple years ago, I was in the biological camp. You couldn't tell me anything different than this thing is these creatures are nothing but flesh and blood. It's this is another animal that we just haven't caught up with yet. We don't know a whole lot about it. And the more people I've talked to and encounters I've listened to and people I've met, I'm starting to realize that might not really be the case. I do think that they're physical. I certainly do, but something is leading me to believe that there's more to it than that. So that's what we're going to do. We're not just going to be a Bigfoot show. We're going to talk a little bit about everything. And Duffy, I think this might be a good time, man, to go ahead and talk a little bit about what do you envision this show being. I know what you and I have talked about, but share it with the folks. What can they expect moving forward?
Oh, most certainly. And I wanted to touch on the on that that Bigfoot only thing too, because yeah, some people claim that they don't believe in some of these other cryptids per se, and we've heard people say it before. It's kind of ridiculous, but even myself, I don't necessarily believe in something until I see it. But I've got an open enough mind to keep it out there, and I've actually seen more than just a Sasquatch. I'll state that for the record. There are other things out there, but my vision is, yeah, just to get some really good guests and to have some really good thought. come out and just present these ideas to the public in the ways that we kind of see them, because sometimes you have people pushing their agendas, and instead of getting on YouTube typing on the internet, senselessly against it, we're just going to put our opinions out on a show for the record. And yeah, I think we're going to come out with some interesting content, because sometimes even I find myself thinking, okay, I don't necessarily believe in this train of thought. And I'll take the Nephilim idea, for example. I I was like, well, they don't have six fingers, et cetera, et cetera. But the other day, I heard some researcher talking about the Nephilim, and he had mentioned something about red eyes, and then I had to change my whole thought process, and I'm still internalizing this at this moment, wanting to go back and listen to Gary Wayne and figure out about the red eyes of this Nephilim, and their faces looked snake-like. It was interesting, the terminologies he was using. But you find these researchers, or these people who have this knowledge that you might not know, and then when you try to put the pieces of the puzzle together, you realize just putting the outside, you're dealing with a giant puzzle. It might be ever expanding. Cryptids could be created in a laboratory, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think that they are. I know that they've been around, but what happens when the government gets DNA? What do they do with DNA when they start playing with it? I mean, what happens when something escapes from a laboratory and is running rampant out there, So is everything natural? I'm not sure. These are the areas that I'm hoping to touch upon through having the show and having an outlet for people to express themselves, because some people just may not believe these things, and there's a lot of danger in doing these things inherently. So it has to be approached in the proper way and given the proper light, but not done overly so that you insult somebody. And it's a very fine line that we're going to have to walk if we are to get some of these guests that are potentially out there that might know about some of these things, like military hit squads, and that aspect, the fringe aspect, the conspiracy aspect, the cover up aspect of Bigfoot. I'm super interested in that, and yet it's not available to be had all the time. So you got to kind of take it as it comes. But I think what we're going to do is, we already know people. We're going to get great guests that have experiences. And then as we just start talking and we start opening up ideas and putting the pieces of the puzzle together, people are going to want to contribute, because they're trying to create that picture of what this is that we're painting. And we're inviting people to come, add your story, add your flavor, add your color, show us what it is that we're experiencing out there, because we, even going out into the woods, we only know a real small sliver of the pie about what we've experienced. But that's why we put the truth out there. That's why I document, I make videos, I just show a structure, just take pictures, just to have the evidence, so that way in the future it might help coerce people into the belief. So that's all we're going to do is put it out there and have this show. And we're not going to be biased and say, sorry, can't talk about that on this show, or
There you go.
don't believe that. Not going to do that. We're going to, if we think it's credible and we think it fits and it's that standard, we'd love to have you. That's where I'm at with it.
You nailed it. You nailed it, brother. Yeah, and I don't want to freak anybody out. That those are that are familiar with you and your channel, and those are that are familiar with me and ours over at Manimal. Um, Bigfoot holds, and I think I'm speaking for you. I'm pretty sure I am.
Mm-hmm.
Bigfoot holds a special place in our heart. So, the majority, I really believe the majority of this podcast, this show, is going to be covering Sasquatch. But that being said, we're not afraid to reach out, and we're going to be discussing Dogman. We're going to be discussing UFOs a lot, I think. But and certainly other cryptids. We want to talk about all of this stuff, but Bigfoot Bigfoot is that's our bread and butter, man. It really is. I'm not afraid to say I got a bit of a foot fetish. Uh, I do. I think a lot of us do. So yeah, man, that's what we're going to be covering a lot of the time, and I think that that's going to make most people happy to hear. I really do, man. If you don't mind, why don't you since we're just winging it, on this inaugural episode of Unscripted, let's you and I share a couple of our experiences, because, like you said, you're a field researcher, and I am too. We've had boots on the ground for a little while now, and one thing that I want to be very, very clear about, and I'm passionate about this. I don't believe that there is such thing as a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch expert. If you've watched my show on YouTube, you've heard me say it 1,000 times, and I don't care to say it 1,000 more for all these people out there that think that they are. You're not. I mean, there's no such thing as a Bigfoot expert. We are researchers because we choose to call ourselves researchers. Field researchers, Sasquatch researchers, Sasquatchologists, whatever you want to call us, that's what we're choosing to call ourselves. There's not any special courses at any universities that I'm aware of that just will allow you to get a degree in Bigfoot studies. You know, I I don't think that's possible. We're not ever going to have an expert on this creature until science recognizes these things for being a legitimate species, or whatever they are. But yeah, man. As I was saying, we both get out there and we choose to do this. We choose to call ourselves researchers. So let's talk about, and you can kick it off for us, buddy. Some of the stuff that we've experienced in the field.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you mentioned boots on the ground. I thought of the Boots on the Ground with Barb and Gabby channel, which is a popular YouTube channel.
Yep.
And how I was thinking of which stories to tell. Um, there's you can get way out there with these are my experiences with the research. You can put yourself way out there and you can be like Jane Goodall and you can be amongst the Sasquatch and it will scare you to the bone. And it doesn't mean anything's going to hurt you. It just means you can do it and you can find yourself amongst these things and you can do it. Or some people come after the fact and kind of do a daytime investigation like I do sometimes along the riverways, and I find footprint evidence and I find structure evidence, or I might find animal kill stuff where they've eaten something or killed a fish or chewed on a duck wing per se. I found all those things. I found a fish, like a big shiny scaled fish with just a huge bite taken out of the size of it, like bigger than a silver dollar. And so you just got to figure it. So it's one of these guys. So I'll tell you, getting out there in the deep woods is the scariest, and it's amazing when you finally do it. And that's what I started doing. And I remember getting way down in this forest one time, and I hung some hard-boiled eggs on a tree, and I knew they were around because there were trees that were like 2 feet in diameter or larger that were snapped over at the base, like all over the place, like 10 or 12 or 14 of them. And I was walking down this ravine, and I finally thought, man, I'm getting spooked out. And I hung those eggs up there, and I was trying to put my GPS location on my phone or put a pin on the map or do something so I could come back, and a tree branch snapped at me and my feet started moving so dang quick. I tell you what, man, that was the first time that I had the realization that Sasquatch was really there, that it wasn't just my imagination, that I wasn't just spooking myself out. And that was at a park that you can park at and hike. And I just happened to take the other way. The trail, would go through the field and to the right. And I went down the left and down this mountain. And you just find these areas where you see the evidence and you see the tree work. I've worked like as an arborist for a few different companies in my life. And so, I mean, I'm familiar with trees. I grew up in New Hampshire. It's like the second most forested state. So, I mean, you know what is natural in the forest and what's not. And you start seeing unnatural signs in the forest and you start tracking it down. And then you get closer to these creatures and you realize that they really are there and it's not just a figment of your imagination. And you start I never considered myself a tracker. I never hunted. I was always a fisherman. But I'm finding I'm a pretty good tracker of these creatures in the forest because they do leave ground impressions and they do leave footprints. You just have to recognize what you're looking at. And I mean, I've shared a lot of photographs with you, and I have even more of these footprints. And I've documented some amazing footprint evidence that might be some of the best out there, including a whole impression where they knelt down into the mud, and a few of them all dug into an area digging out clams in the mud.
Yeah.
And I actually, on the recommendation of Don from Illinois Sasquatch, acquired 4 hairs right out of those impressions where he said, you might want to look in there for hairs. And I went back the next day and I plucked 4 of them out, or at least one of them out on a live stream video, but I acquired 4 of them total. So that's that's another story where the evidence is out there. But what do you do now that you got the hairs, or what do you do when you get the DNA sample? I found a duck wing that was just sitting in the structure, just the wing, chewed on. The whole meaty wing part, like a chicken wing part, was eaten off, and I'm sure there was saliva and all sorts of stuff on there that could have been had. But I've documented all this on video, and I just posted on my YouTube channel for people to watch, and just for future reference, because I'll say, even I went out in 2017 and filmed a Sasquatch by accident, and I didn't even know that I got it on video. I actually filmed one twice, but the first time I was jumping over some logs and it was right there. My second cousin was doing some logging, and I heard the tractor go down the road, and I had my camera with me, and I was on my honeymoon, and I wasn't sure when I was going to go out in the woods, but it was evening. It was kind of sunset was setting, and it was right before dinner, and I said, okay, I'm going to run out there behind him and use the tractor as cover and see if they, you know what I mean, see if they're attracted to the sound of him going over there with the tractor. And sure as shooting, man, one of them was standing in between me and him behind a tree, and I caught it on camera. I was walking away from him up the hill, and I just finally gotten kind of out of range from him that I could start talking without him worrying that he knew I was there, because I snuck in behind him and started walking up the woods. And then I was talking on video saying, I'm just out here doing research. I've been researching in Colorado. I'm just looking around. But there were these 10-foot tree snaps that I noticed. So I'm like, Bigfoot probably did those. And then he was right behind a tree, man. I caught him on camera looking at me, and I didn't notice it for 2 or 3 months. The video was already posted on YouTube. And I was thinking about it in my head. And this could go into some strange phenomenon in itself, because I kind of had like an impression in my head. I saw like a vision of like me scrubbing through footage, just like as I was thinking about, I wonder if I filmed anything that day. Like this vision came into my head of like this color, just like the color scamming, kind of just like as I skimmed through the footage. So I went onto my media player, loaded up the first clip that I filmed, and I got this creature looking at me from behind a tree. It's this on a brownish red Sasquatch. It's not the clearest, but it's pretty obvious that he peeks out at me and then goes back behind the tree. And I only caught it because the camera, looked to the right when I jumped over these logs. But it was pretty amazing to actually. That was my goal, was to, when I was getting real deep in the woods in Colorado, I wanted to film one. So I feel like I accomplished my goal. It might not be the best footage, but not everybody can say that they filmed a Sasquatch.
Yeah. Yeah. Not everybody's running out getting, Patty on film.
I wish it was that good.
Well, yeah, man. But what I took away from that little story that you just told was how romantic that was. Being your honeymoon and everything, and you're out in the woods combining tractors, woods, and Bigfoot. I mean,
Well, you think
yeah.
it was romantic until you hear the rest of the story, where this creature actually came back to the house. I'm not lying here. This creature came back to the house. We just got done eating dinner, and my wife went into the room, which was at the opposite end of the house from the kitchen, both both on the corner of the backyard, to change her shirt. And she changed her shirt, and she was looking up, and this thing was looking in the window at her, but it was already making a break for it. But it had time to turn to her, and she said it smiled at her. It looked happy. It didn't look like it was mad. She said she got a good feeling about it. And I was standing in the kitchen with my back to the sliding glass door where the backyard is, and I'm talking to my great aunt, and she says, my wife's like, honey, somebody's in the backyard, but she didn't tell me. Like, she didn't want to say Sasquatch because she's never met my great aunt. She doesn't want to just start talking crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, she sees it, but she doesn't know. Also, I don't know if she realizes it's about to like make a break right behind me, because my great aunt, man, screams, puts her hands over her head, and shrinks down and goes, "Oh my God, what is that? Who is that?" And I turn around immediately. I don't see anything. I wait like maybe 1 second. I flip the latch on the slider. I throw it open. I go out. I look left, and I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't see anything. And I'm like, what was it? I look at my wife. She's like, huh? She's nodding. She's like, baby, it was Bigfoot. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Really?
And I went back out with the camera, and I was calling to it. And there's cornfield out there. And I mean, they could have been right on the other side of it. I mean, I know I grew up on that land. You know, I spent a lot of time there as a kid. I don't know how long these things live, but I mean, he was a pretty big dude. He could have been as old as me. I'm 41. I just wonder, maybe, did he know me from a kid, or was he just
No.
coming back because I'm out there in the woods screaming, my friends, and then they're like, I'm telling you, bro, that's my technique. I don't try to speak Bigfoot to them. I just go out there and I say, my friends, and I state my intention. It's with the tone of voice, though. Like, I let them feel my intention through my tone of voice. I could be saying chocolate cake,
Yeah.
but they think this guy got chocolate cake for me or what? Let's go see what he's got. But they you got to connect with them through that voice. They do that to each other. They scream out there in the wild, and another one will knock back. Or I think it's just how they are.
That's really cool, man. I think that's a lot of the things we need to talk about. We need to be sharing amongst other things is technique, different techniques that we use and things like that. I think it's really cool that you get out there and talk like in like a normal tone, just normal things. And I know other people have a different approach. I've got buddies that I go out in the woods with. One in particular that he will yell out a few Native American sayings, Native American words like friend and welcome and things like that. So yeah, we need to be sharing with others. Some of these techniques, especially things that we found that we've had some success with. But yeah, man, that's a crazy story about your wife. Man, you and I have been buddies for a little while now, and it seems like every time I talk to you, I get another cool story. That's awesome.
Well, and then the next night, I'll just tell you another shit. I'll just jump right on. The next night, we go over to Maine and spend the night at my other aunt's house, and they got a whole mountain right behind them. And I went up there, man. I got bipedal footsteps on camera. I mean, on video, like right as I'm going up the trail. I didn't see it, but I mean, I didn't chase it either. I kind of walked up the hill behind it. I didn't want to directly chase it, but I also had like an Ohio howl that I caught on video in Maine. I mean, I need somebody to do some audio work on that, buddy, because it's clear as day. It's pretty good. I didn't even hear it at the time, but I was talking, and then right when I stopped talking, it came through. And my wife was not too happy that I went back in the woods though that night, man. When I came down off that mountain, she wasn't sleeping too good those 2 nights. So I do feel bad for what I put her through. But
Yeah.
I was at ease. I told her, hey, they're nice, they're not going to hurt us. But she's like, oh, just stay here, sleep here, like don't open the window. She was like freaking out, and I was like, oh man, it's too hot, I got to open the window. And then I didn't have a good night of sleep either. So
Now, is this New Hampshire?
that was in Freiburg, Maine, just across the New
Dang,
Hampshire
okay.
border. Yep,
Okay.
right by the Saco River. They're over there. A lot of snowmobile trails that go through there, and that's what I was taking, was a snowmobile trail. I actually ran into a guy that was like, I was like 10 feet, 15 feet from this guy. He was coming up a hill before he realized that I was there. He almost hit me with his ATV. He's like, Jesus, he's like, I've never seen anybody out here on these trails before. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so and so's nephew, and I'm just here hiking up here, and I know that her father cleared a big patch of land up here. I was just looking for it, and I went in there, man. I got whistled at, and I walked out into this huge clearing, and the trees like swallowed me up. I didn't know which way to get back out. I kind of got spooked. I think they were looking at me. Like I walked way out in this clearing, but something whistled at me like only like 50, 100 feet away when I yelled out to him. And I thought it was a bird, but then when I listened to the video, I'm like, whoa, that was way too loud to be a bird. And that's why I think I was getting so scared. And then I got really scared, and I made my way down that mountain really fast.
Wow.
Yeah, I was a little bit scared there, honestly. I was putting myself at risk, Wayne, because I dropped my cell phone in a tide pool taking wedding pictures with my wife. And so we got some amazing pictures on the cloud, like nighttime, full moon. We're all dressed in white on the beach. Like it was just amazing photos. But yeah, like I dropped the phone in there. So then I'm out in the woods in New Hampshire with no cell phone, and in Maine with no cell phone, just a camera rolling. So if anything bad happened, it would have been my two legs getting me out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. How long ago was this?
2017.
Okay. Okay. So not all that long ago.
Not at all.
Yeah, 5 years.
Yep.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. I mean, I don't really have anything that can top that, but I don't mind to share a little bit about what I've been experiencing, and I haven't been doing it as long as you. I am a lifetime uh, cryptid nerd, I guess you could say. I remember being a kid and going to the library in elementary school, and you get to go once a week and check out a couple books and bring them back. And every time I got to go to the library, I was looking for no books on the weird stuff. Anytime I saw something on Bigfoot, I would get it. Chupacabra, the Loch Ness monster. Any type of cryptid. I was there and I was interested in it. But
And those librarians aren't just putting those books in the catalog for the heck of it. Like I think there's an agenda behind that. You hear guys older than me saying that, oh, I used to check out the Bigfoot books at the library. I'm like, yeah. Why are all these schools making sure that they got cryptid books in their school?
that's interesting.
Yeah, I thought that before. I hear it so often. It definitely has crossed my mind.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely something to think about, man. This might be a topic for another show, but I think we all agree they know these things are out there.
Oh, guaranteed, guaranteed. I mean, dude, they got the DNA. Come on,
Yes, they
we
do.
can get into it. We can really get into it on some of these because I'm kind of a stickler for some of these guys. They'll say, "Oh, he's real" or "He's a hoaxer," and I'm like, "Oh man, if you knew the backstory about the government and what really goes on, I'm like, they'll make you do a dang hoax." I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just telling you, it's like they'll make you prove your loyalty. It seems like.
and that's something that you and I talked about when we've laid out ideas for future shows, and
Exactly.
and the whole Melba Ketchum thing. I think we're gonna try to delve into um, at some point her DNA study. And I just feel really bad for that woman. I really do. She got the raw end of that deal.
Well, she's probably not too happy about it, but in the long run, she did a great service for
She did.
Bigfoot truth, and you can try to deny her all you want, but sometimes that's the sign of the truth is when you get so much criticism and trying to silence you. It's like, what? Why don't you want to hear what we got to say? And all the criticisms, I'm really kind of disappointed in one show in particular that they had a scientist, quote unquote scientist, on kind of going over her information, and it was all little criticisms that he had about you know chain of command, and the DNA. It was nothing about the actual study and what the DNA said. So it was all totally little critical things about the handling of the DNA or all this speculation. And at the end of the show, I'm like, you really didn't prove anything. But not to get sidetracked there, but yeah, the woman has not been given a fair deal. I'll say that. But we can talk about it in future shows. I know Dawn from Illinois Sasquatch speaks with her online, and there's her study speaks for itself, but a lot of people are going to not want to not going to want to hear that there's human DNA contributing to that idea of Sasquatch. And just because even Melba Ketchum has all this DNA, does that mean that's the end all of Sasquatch DNA research? You never know what else could be out there. It's like sticking a hook in the water. What'd you catch? What'd you catch? What'd you catch? Doesn't mean you caught every species in the lake. It just means this
Yeah,
is what's biting. This is what you caught. There could still be something out there. You don't know.
absolutely. I mean, we're always. I mean, seem like all the time we're finding new species of something.
I'm telling you. You just and the more people get some of these things on video, it's like, what are they? What's, how big do they get? How many kinds are there? We've talked about this. I don't believe in the type 1, type 2, type 3
Yeah.
per se, but I'm very interested in the physical qualities. Like I can see a dog. I seen a dog walk by the other day in my house, and I'm like, oh, that's a border collie, um, shepherd mix or whatever it was. It was a spaniel, I mean, but like you can see it. You can see the genetics. So it makes you wonder with a Sasquatch, what genetics are contributing to this? What's a Neanderthal versus a Sasquatch? Did Neanderthal die out? Is Bigfoot Neanderthal? I know Thinker Thunker had a video about that. And I don't think they are, but we've got Neanderthal DNA. So how much
Yeah.
Neanderthal DNA might the Sasquatch have? Those are little questions that we might have that I don't necessarily have answers on, but those could be little intricacies that could make the difference in the understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. I mean, you mentioned Thinker Thunker. I mean, how awesome is that guy's stuff?
Well, I mean, yeah, him too. He's contributed so much to the field of truth. It's really amazing what that man's discovered. My favorite discovery he has is the angle of the bone from the knee to the ankle, distinguishing whether something walking is a Sasquatch or a human, because he says they have a different gait based on
Yeah.
that angulature. But that's a profound realization. That changes the whole game.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean that from what you just mentioned right there. Whenever I'm looking at videos and trying to just come up with my own opinion and decide for myself without listening to others and trying my best not to be influenced, that's the first thing that I look at if possible is that gait, that step. And can you see with each step that they take, can you see the bottom of their foot? Because when these things take a step, when we do, we kind of slide our feet. You never see the bottom of our feet. But if you watch the Patty film and other credible videos, you can almost always see the entire bottom of their foot. And if we were to walk like that, it looks very awkward, very very strange. So yeah, I mean, I'm getting off on something that I probably shouldn't, but yeah, you hit on something really really cool there, and that's what I look at when I'm looking at video is can you see the bottom of that foot?
Well, you do got a foot fetish, admittedly, but yeah, no, I know what you mean because you know what is funny? Like I will get a lot of, not a lot, but at first, like people will say, like, "Oh, are you sure those are Sasquatch footprints?" Like they can't be, like they look like people's prints, because sometimes they'll be walking along the beach and it does just look like an open-toed foot, but then all of a sudden you get that step where it has the mid-tarsal break where they step so strange where you're like, oh yeah, that is the Sasquatch, isn't it? But yeah, it's that's why you document the evidence when you find the stuff, because it's all hearsay unless you got the proof. And that's what we're trying to do is get the proof, not just opinion. It's funny because I always hear people say, I believe this, well, I don't believe that, I believe this. Well, what is your belief, quote unquote belief, even based on? You know what I mean? It's like people can't put things into the proper context a lot of time, and belief becomes a dismissive thing where they're using it like a protective mechanism. No, I only believe this, I'm only willing to go this far away from the light. You know what I mean? It's getting
Mm-hmm.
real dark over there and scary. People do that for us. It's a protective thing, but it's like I say I believe in everything. I believe it's all true. If people are saying it's happening, I believe it. I've had some paranormal stuff happen to me with Sasquatch that I think people would be like, yeah, right. But I
Yeah,
mean, I have seen some things, man, that I'm like, they had to have done that. There's no way it wasn't them, and they are letting me know that they are aware of that. I'm aware of them, and I've experienced that a lot. I've got a whole interview that I did about a lot of my paranormal stuff on the Xeno Hunters channel called Strange Bigfoot Encounters. That I mean, it's got thousands of views, but there's some good ones on there. But recently, one that I didn't tell, and I'll tell you, this is some spooky stuff. There was a gallon water jug on the ground in the kitchen. Has like a little precipice and a doorway, so the fridge is on one side and the sink and everything's on the other one. And this gallon jug only had a couple tablespoons of water in it, and it started sliding across the floor at me as though there was like a giant finger from below pushing it, but it wasn't dead center, so it would kind of like slide off to the left or the right. And
Time to
each
go.
time you could see, dude, it slid over the precipice of the door,
Time
like
to go, bro.
over a foot at me. Oh yeah, I'm telling you, I was like, well, these are the kind of things that you don't often talk about, and yet when it happens, what can you say? I
Yeah,
mean,
and at that point, hey, where's Wayne? He's gone.
I don't think I've lived in a haunted house, so I'm not petrified. And if I saw a Sasquatch, I'd be a little more scared than the invisible type per se. But
Oh
it
yeah,
does make you wonder, man. I'm not in the physical only camp. I'll make that on the record.
yeah. I'm the whole ghosts and paranormal stuff like that. I'm definitely interested. Like most, I love a good ghost story, and I'm definitely interested. But you as far as like ghost investigations, ghost hunting, and stuff like that, I've never been crazy about really wanting to do a whole lot of that because I've just always been afraid of what might latch on and
Yeah,
come home with me, man.
I'm with you. I don't tempt fate. I mean, Bigfoot coming home is bad enough. At least he stays outside, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, hang out there, Harry.
Uh-huh. I'm like, if you're gonna stay outside, that's one thing. Go in my backyard and moan. Go ahead, but don't be coming in the bedroom.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right. That's right.
mhm.
Yeah, well, I got we that that kind of speaks to the name of the show, unscripted. We got a little off topic there. I was going to go into some of my stuff that I found out in the woods, but we took it in another direction, and that's cool. That's what we're going to do with this show.
Oh shoot, pick it back up if you want. You know what I found interesting, Wayne, is the your suggestion about leaving a tent, like a fully loaded tent out in the woods, just
Yeah,
no person, like a campsite going, and to make Bigfoot so curious that he's got to come in and investigate. I
yeah,
thought that was so brilliant. Or the over the vehicle you mentioned too. Those were two great ideas you had.
yeah. That's a couple of techniques, and I can't take all the credit for those. I did get the idea from other individuals, and that's something we can talk about later. Maybe even do a show on techniques to gather some unique ways to gather evidence.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. But that's why we're just dropping these hints all over the place. You know,
Oh yeah,
I heard somebody say, "Oh yeah, screw the lid of a peanut butter jar to the tree," so that way when they unscrew it, they got to unscrew it, so you know that they didn't just take it. It wasn't just an animal. But I thought that was a great idea too. I tried that.
yeah,
I came back and the paper was all scratched off. I don't know if it was the animal doing it or them, but
yeah. And one of the very first experiments I ever did when I first got into this, research and actually going out in the field and doing this stuff was, and it's weird. It's cool that you brought up peanut butter because it made me think about it. This was a couple of years ago. I actually went onto this property, a family property, where it had been rumored that some stuff had been going on over the years, and no one has lived at this property for over 20 years. There's a house on it that has grown up. It's condemned. No one goes up there. No one's allowed on that property. And so I went up there and I saw some interesting stuff. So I came back by myself. This was the first time I'd ever done anything, and I chose to do it by myself. And I've got all these things going through my head. I'm freaked out, and I've got it on film. I got the video up on Manimal Research on YouTube. If you want to go check it out. But what I did was I took a jar of peanut butter. I took the lid off and I suspended it from a tree. I tied it up with some rope.
uh-huh.
I hung it. It's about 8 to 9 foot off the ground. I want to make sure no deer could lean up and get it, and I wanted to be confident that a bear couldn't get to it. I didn't tie it to a big enough tree for a bear to climb, and it was definitely over. And we don't have a whole lot of bear up in the part of Tennessee that I live, out in the Smokies. You know, they're everywhere, but I'm south of that, not close to the Georgia line. And there's not a whole lot of bears
Uh-huh.
in this area. But I hung this peanut butter up for this real thin rope, and like I said, I was fairly confident that nothing else could get to it. And I went back. It was either the next day or the day after, and I walked far enough back there where I could see, yep, it's still there. Nothing's messed with it. So I left. I was on there for a couple minutes. I waited longer, and it was a couple weeks went by. I came up there, and the jar was gone. And obviously, I have no idea what took it. Something took it. The rope was still there, but the thing about that was interesting about the rope, and I also have this on YouTube. You can go and check it out. The rope wasn't cut, and it wasn't burnt or anything, but it appeared to be torn or like ripped, but the area where it was ripped was filthy. It was just as dirty as it could be.
Really?
And yeah, I mean, it's like it was
Hangs
just,
up in the air like that, right?
yeah, suspended in the air, and where it was broken, it was dirty. Yeah,
Weird.
I don't know.
They must have gripped it with some dirty hands, maybe, and pulled it apart or something like that.
Something did that. That's what I'm thinking. They reached up, grabbed the peanut butter, and with one hand, the rope with the other, and just pulled.
Yeah, that would make sense. I left a balloon one night out where I knew I was gifted to this little, what I thought was this little one that I ended up seeing like a year later or something like that in the same area right by a structure. But that was the only one I've actually seen with my physical eyes, was a young one. But in the same area, I was leaving stuff and it was being taken. So I left a heart-shaped pink balloon, and I came back the next day and I left it at night at sunset. And my stepdaughter went to school right there. So I dropped her off at at daycare at like 6 in the morning. So I went there before anybody got to it. And that ribbon had been pulled tight. You know, when you pull like a ribbon tight and it finally breaks, but that's going to take a lot of strength to break one of those, man. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, whoa, it took that balloon. I wonder where it is.
Yeah, man. There's all kind of little cool little things that I've tried, and I know some stuff that you've tried, and that some other buddies in the community have tried, and we'll talk about some of those in an upcoming show. But as far as me, one thing that I don't want to do in this show, and I've never really, I've always kind of thought it was a kind of a douche thing to do, was the whole name dropping thing. Well, I was sitting around the fire with me and my buddy Jeff Meldrum. We're discussing, and we all know people that do that. They you always have to include somebody else, to make themselves look better, or experience. So I don't want to do a whole lot of that.
No, we don't need to ride anybody's coattails because we've done the work and we've put in the time, and you've got a dedicated show as it is. But I'm with you.
Yeah,
Those guys
and
are great, but they, on the same note, they could be compromised, because when you do get to a certain level in life, you'll find that they want you to say certain things and they don't want you to say certain things, and for whose benefit is it really? So you're taking a payoff to be a spokesperson to keep Sasquatch reality back in the 60s with the Patty film and Ron Moorhead, and yeah, Sasquatch is back in the 70s. You can talk about that all day long. That's like a whole agenda sometimes, I think. And it's like, people always say, oh, if Bigfoot's real, why don't we have any videos of it? And I'm like, okay, we got the Patty film, but we
you
got
just
plenty more after that. But
you just led me into what I was my one encounter that I'm gonna share. You just hit the nail on the head, man. Now I said the whole don't want to like name drop and toot your own horn. I'm not going to be doing any of that stuff, and I say all of that to kind of contradict myself. Um, this here recently, I was contacted by a television production crew or a company out of Tennessee here. I was contacted and asked if I would be a part of a production that they have coming up later in September. And so yeah, I agreed to it. So this past week, I went and did a little walkthrough with them and had an interview. So I will be appearing on a show coming up, and I signed papers saying that I couldn't give a whole lot of information. I can't give like specifics or anything like that.
Well, you're an
But
official Bigfoot celebrity now.
that's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm a nobody, and I really don't know how they got my name and the information. But it was really cool, and it's going to be on Tubi coming up in September. These things always get pushed back, so it might get pushed back, but I'll update and everything. But uh, they wanted me to share some of my experiences, and one of the experiences I shared with them, I'll go ahead and share now, and it has something to do with what you were just talking about. The skeptics and others want to always, their main thing was, why didn't you get it on camera, or why haven't you found a body? Well, we're not going to go into that right now, but one of the questions is, why didn't you take a picture of it? If it was there in front of you, we all have we all have phones in our pocket. Every phone has a camera nowadays. Why didn't you take a picture of it? Well, I can kind of speak to that with this experience that happened with me. It was about a year and a half ago, something like that. I was with a few members of my group, and we were out going to do a night investigation. There was four of us on this particular trip, and we were in North Georgia. It was myself, two other members of Manimal, and a member's grandson, 13-year-old grandson. And we get to this location, we've set up, we got everything going, and man, I the whole time I'm there, I'm feeling like something's wrong, something's off, something's not right. And I've been on several investigations and never had this feeling before, or not to this level, I would say. So, the whole day I just felt like something's watching us. Something's just not right. And back then, we as a group we don't do them now, but back then we used to do what we would call a night hike, and that's 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. We get to all get together, and or we'd split up in groups depending on how many people were there, and we would just go out in the woods and just take our cameras and walk and see what we could find. We don't do that now because it kind of goes against my philosophy and research. And my philosophy is you're never going to sneak up on these things. They know that you're there before you do. And if you want to have an experience with a Sasquatch, just go do you. Go to the woods and have a normal experience, what you would normally do. And if there's any around, they're going to come see you. They're going to come find you. So that's our belief now. So, but back then it wasn't. We would go out, we would do these night hikes, and me having this feeling, this day, this this evening, I decided I wasn't going to participate in the night hike. I just wanted no part of it. I wanted to stay close to camp. And I could tell that the 13-year-old grandson was kind of feeling it with me. He wasn't crazy about going out there either. So he and I decided we were going to hang back. And the other two members, they went out about 12:30, 1 o'clock, something like that. They headed out, and we had radio. We were in constant communication with each other. And man, they weren't gone 10 minutes before just the most horrendous sound I've ever heard in my entire life just unleashed, just out of nowhere. And it sounded like it was right on top of us, man. It
Like,
was this
what?
it was like this combination of a bark that goes into a laugh,
Ooh,
or maybe a
good.
laugh that goes into a bark.
Oh,
Just the
oh,
most. demonic, evil sounding thing you have ever heard. And it was right on top of us, too, man. And within about a 90-second to 2 minute span, it probably went off a dozen times, 10, 12 times, making this sound. And, we mentioned Thinker Thunker earlier. Again, I love this guy. I love his work. um, he actually has a video on his channel, and I think it's called the Cackling Bigfoot or Cackling Sound, and it's this gentleman on a Native American reservation, and I believe it's. I mean, forgive me if I'm mistaken, but I believe that's what it is. And he has his cell phone out, and he's got this thing making this terrible noise out behind him, and he's got it on audio, and that's exactly what I heard. It sounds like a hyena,
Yeah.
like a laughing hyena, or like a really pissed off coyote that's in a good mood. Or I mean, that don't make any sense. Pissed off and in a good mood, but just a laughing coyote. That I don't know, man.
I think I know that exact sound, and as soon as you started describing it, it started playing in my head. I know exactly what you mean. It does sound like it's like like, but a crazy.
Yeah.
I've heard it, man. I've heard that, and that's amazing though that I mean, what do you think it was? Did you see anything?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Spook you out the area, or what happened next?
We, I get on the radio and I holler out to the guys, "Hey, did y'all hear that?" And they come back, "Yeah, what was that?" No, I don't know, but y'all need to get back here.
Right.
So they booked it back, and they didn't make it back before this thing had finally stopped. And keep in mind, the only reason that any of us are out there, I mean, there was one reason, and that was to gather evidence of a Sasquatch. Right. Or of something. So we have all this equipment with us. I've got a thermal, I've got night vision goggles. I mean, I've got infrared cameras,
right?
Digital recorders. I mean, just everything. I've got all of this equipment, and I'm there for this reason. There's no other reason on earth that I'm there other than to get something, either on audio or on camera, a picture, or whatever. And it finally happens. And you know what I reach for?
Pistol.
My 45.
Exactly.
On my hip. That's the only thing I grabbed.
I know.
I pulled my 45 out of the holster and I held it in my hand.
Yep.
And I stood there for 2 minutes until this thing stopped. And my knees are shaking. I feel this little boy inching closer and closer to me. I never met this kid before today.
Right.
And he was scared. I was scared. The guys that were out there were scared. We were terrified. And I didn't reach for my phone. I didn't reach for the recorder that was in my pocket or the camera that was on the table, 5 feet away from me. Right. I reached for that pistol and I stood there until I felt like this thing was done. And then later it hits me, I would love to hear that again. Why didn't I record it? And it wasn't just me. There's 3 other people on this thing that are wanting to do the exact same thing that I'm doing, that we're all doing. Our one goal is to get evidence, and none of us thought to pull out a camera.
Well, you know what? And that just goes to show you the value of an audio recorder continuously running. I don't even do that, but I know people that do. And there's been times where, I shut off the camera and something happens. And I'm like, You know what? If I just had a recorder that was going all the time in my pocket, I could have heard that knock. And I'm like, it doesn't really matter to me. And I ain't going to prove anything off of one knock anyway to anybody. But it's still evidence, and it's still what you're out there for. And it's like going out, not picking up what you're looking for. What's the point? You're just wasting your own time if you're not doing it right.
Yeah, exactly.
And for gold, dumping it right back in the river,
Yeah, man.
It happens,
But yeah, man, and I used to be in that same camp asking that same question, but I don't anymore. I understand it. I understand it completely.
We got some good equipment. That's cool.
Yeah, man. I think we might be at a good good stopping point. What do you think? I think we've accomplished what we wanted to for this first episode.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we've got some people's interest, and we definitely have some shows lined up with some credible individuals, and we're going to be bringing
And
nothing nothing
you
but
got this one guy. I'm not going to bring his. I'm not going to mention his name right now. I don't know how much information he wants to give, but I can't wait. Cannot wait for this guy to share his experience. From what I've gathered from you, you guys can't wait, do you? I mean,
he's a hunter, and he's got some good ones. Let's put it that way. He's got like two or three that should be pretty darn good. So yeah, trick is getting them on and getting the recording and just finding the time with all of our schedules. But I think now that we've recorded the first episode and we're really dedicated, we'll put it out there, and we'll just start recording and getting it going. So whenever he can get on, we'll get him on. And otherwise, I got some other people lined up, and I know you do too.
yeah. Well, and this, like I said, this is a brand new show. We're winging this thing, figuring it out as we go, because the podcast is a platform that neither you or myself are familiar with. You know, we're learning as we go, and we are definitely going to have some other avenues out there to find our stuff. We're in the process, going to be in the process of putting a website out there, and actually right now we have an Instagram account. I just started it. I think we've only got one follower, not even following anybody, but it is. You can find us at the Unscripted Podcast on Instagram. We're going to be sharing some pictures, some of our pictures, some pictures that our guests um, share and give us permission to use. So yeah, guys, head over to Instagram and follow us there if you don't mind, and we'll keep you guys updated on when the other stuff will be out. But yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm excited to get this new adventure going. And again, man, I don't want to sound cheesy or anything, but there was one person I had in mind to do this with, and you were the only one that I asked, and you said yes, made it really easy on me, and I'm tickled to have you, buddy. And we're gonna do some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me a platform to put my voice out there and my opinions out there, and I think yeah, we're gonna really we're gonna shake them up, buddy.
All right, man. All of that being said, looking forward to getting back at you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we will catch you later.
All right, everybody, good night. Thanks for listening.